It started as something harmless, or at least that's what I told myself. He laughed when he asked me for help, saying his wife would tease him if he showed up unkempt. I agreed, trying to keep it casual, trying not to let my thoughts wander. But the moment my hands touched his skin, the air changed. The silence grew heavier, his breathing shifted, and suddenly, I realized this was no ordinary favor between friends. Something unspoken lingered there, waiting to break through. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and turn on notifications, because what happened next is something I never thought I'd confess. I told myself it was just a favor. That was the lie I clung to as I stood in his bathroom, the sound of the razor buzzing in my hand. The air smelled faintly of shaving cream and steam from the shower he had just taken. He sat on the edge of the tub, shirt off, his broad frame relaxed but his eyes carrying something I couldn't read. "Don't laugh if I flinch," he said, grinning nervously. "I won't," I answered, forcing my voice to sound steady. But the moment the razor touched his skin, I felt the electricity. My hand brushed his chest, and his warmth seeped into me. Every line of muscle, every shift of his breathing, made me painfully aware of how close I was. He tried to joke at first. "Guess you never thought you'd end up doing this for me, huh?" I chuckled lightly. Yeah, not exactly how I pictured spending my Friday night. Still, beneath the laughter, I felt the undercurrent. The silence that followed each joke was heavier than the words themselves. His gaze flicked up to me once, sharp and lingering, before darting away. "You're good at this," he said quietly. "Guess I've got a steady hand," I replied, though my heart was racing. Minutes passed, each stroke of the razor pulling me deeper into the tension I was trying to ignore. I told myself I couldn't think about it, that he was married, that this was a line I wasn't supposed to cross. But the truth was, I'd thought about him before. More than once. And now, here I was, with every excuse stripped away. When I moved lower, across his stomach, his breath caught. He didn't say anything, but the shift in his chest, the way his muscles tightened, told me enough. My hand trembled slightly and I paused. "You okay?" I asked. His eyes met mine, steady this time. "Yeah. Just not used to this." Something in his tone made my chest ache. He wasn't just talking about the razor. The silence stretched. My hand hovered, unsure whether to pull back or keep going. And then he said it, soft, almost daring me to hear it. "You ever think about what people don't say?" I froze. "What do you mean?" He leaned back slightly, his voice low. "Like when two people are in a room, and everything looks normal. But underneath, there's something else." The razor buzzed uselessly in my hand. My throat was dry. I swallowed. "Yeah, I think about that." His lips parted, like he wanted to say more, but then he shook his head, retreating. "Forget it." I forced myself to move again, though my pulse was hammering. The silence was unbearable now, every second weighted with the things we weren't saying. When I finally finished, I set the razor aside. He stood, running a hand over his chest, testing the smooth skin. "Looks good," he said, but his voice was strained, distant. I nodded, avoiding his eyes. "Yeah, all done." But as I reached for the door, his hand brushed my arm, light, deliberate, impossible to ignore. I turned, and the look he gave me nearly shattered me. There was no mask now, no joke, no shield. Just a question he was too afraid to speak. I didn't answer it, not with words. I couldn't. I just stood there, trapped between the door and him, my body screaming to move but my mind frozen in the weight of what might come next. And that was when his wife's voice echoed faintly from the hallway outside, calling his name. We both froze, the air crackling, our unspoken truth hanging between us like lightning waiting to strike. The sound of her voice snapped me back into reality like a slap across the face. His wife. She was home earlier than either of us expected. My heart slammed against my ribs as he shot me a look, a mixture of panic and something deeper, like he was silently begging me not to move, not to ruin this fragile balance. "Yeah," he called back, his voice steady, practiced. The kind of tone that hid things. The kind of tone a man wore when he had learned to live in two worlds. I stood frozen near the door, every muscle in me tight. He grabbed a towel from the counter, wrapping it loosely around his waist as if nothing had just happened. Then, with a quick glance at me, he whispered, "Don't go yet." Her footsteps echoed closer, heels clicking softly against the hardwood. She appeared in the doorway, smiling, her eyes bright. "You're already home? I thought you'd be working late." He gave her an easy grin, one I'd seen him use 100 times before, natural, warm, convincing. "Got off earlier. Just taking care of some things around here." Her gaze shifted to me, and I felt the ground tilt beneath me. "Oh, I didn't know we had company." I forced a smile. "Yeah, just helping out." She nodded, oblivious, and walked over to kiss his cheek. The towel slipped slightly on his waist as she leaned in, and for a brief moment, I thought it might fall. My breath caught. He held it in place, his eyes darting to mine as though daring me not to look. "I'm going to change," she said casually, walking out of the bathroom without a second thought. When her footsteps faded, he turned back to me. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The air between us was electric, charged with the secret we had almost spilled. "You should probably go," I whispered, though it came out more like a plea than a suggestion. But he shook his head, his voice low, steady. "Not yet." He stepped closer, so close that I could see the droplets of water still clinging to his skin, the faint trace of a smile on his lips. "Do you realize what just happened? How close we were?" "Yes," I admitted, my chest tight. "And it's dangerous." He studied me, his jaw working as if he was wrestling with himself. Then, almost to himself, he murmured, "Maybe dangerous is what I've been needing." The words landed like a spark in a dry field, igniting everything I had tried to bury. I wanted to push him away, to remind him of the line neither of us was supposed to cross. But instead I stayed rooted, my pulse screaming in my ears. "Why me?" I asked, the question slipping out before I could stop it. "You could have anyone. You have her." His eyes darkened, and for the first time, his voice cracked with honesty. "Because you see me. Not the husband, not the perfect guy, not the mask. Just me." I swallowed hard, my throat dry. "And what if I can't give you what you're looking for?" "Then at least don't lie to me," he said. "Don't pretend you don't feel this too." The words hit me like a confession I had been too afraid to make myself. Before I could answer, the sound of her voice drifted again from down the hall. "I'll order us dinner. Any requests?" "Whatever's fine," he shouted back, his tone light, casual, as if nothing in the world was unraveling inside this bathroom. When her footsteps moved farther away, he looked at me again, his voice lower now, almost trembling. "We don't have much time. But I need to know if you're with me in this. Even if it's just here, just now." I wanted to speak, but the words tangled in my throat. All I could manage was a nod. It was small, but it was enough. He exhaled, relief flickering across his face. "Then we'll figure it out." The sound of plates clattering in the kitchen reminded us of the reality waiting just beyond the door. We weren't free. We weren't safe. But in that moment, the truth we had both been hiding finally cracked open. He stepped closer again, so close I could feel the heat radiating off his body. His hand brushed mine, deliberate, lingering, and the look in his eyes said what neither of us dared to speak aloud. "We're past pretending now," he whispered. And just as the weight of his words sank in, her voice called out again, louder this time, "Dinner's here." The spell broke, and we both jolted back to reality. But the look we shared promised one thing: there would be no turning back. Dinner with them felt like sitting on a fault line, waiting for the ground to split beneath me. The table was set casually, takeout containers, paper napkins, a bottle of red wine open between us. She moved around the kitchen with easy grace, humming softly, unaware of the storm brewing inside me. He sat across from me, his wife between us, yet every time his eyes met mine, it was like the world fell away. I tried not to look, tried to focus on the food, but the pull was magnetic. Every brush of his arm when he passed me a dish, every accidental graze of his foot beneath the table, sent a shiver racing through me. "So," she said cheerfully, "how long have you two known each other?" I swallowed, forcing a smile. "A while." Her eyes brightened. Funny you never mentioned him before, she teased her husband. He smirked faintly. Guess I like to keep some things to myself. The comment landed heavier than it should have, loaded with meaning only he and I understood. My fork paused halfway to my mouth, and I dared not glance at him. We ate in fragments of conversation, the clink of cutlery filling the spaces between. She asked about work, the neighborhood, mundane details. I answered automatically, though my mind wasn't in the room. My mind was trapped in the tension humming between her husband and me, the quiet current that refused to break. After dinner, she excused herself to take a call in the other room. The moment she was gone, the silence shifted. He leaned back in his chair, eyes fixed on me. You've barely touched your food, he said softly. I set my fork down. I wasn't hungry. His gaze didn't waver. Not for food anyway. My chest tightened. Stop. Stop what? Stop making this harder than it already is. He exhaled, running a hand over his face. I can't. Do you have any idea how long I've been pretending? I stared at him, my voice low, shaking. You're married. And I'm miserable, he admitted. The words slipped out like a confession he'd been dying to release. She's a good person. None of this is her fault. But I've been living a lie, and for the first time in years, I don't feel like I'm suffocating when I'm with you. The weight of his honesty hit me like a punch. I wanted to believe him, but fear pressed down harder. And what happens if she finds out? What happens if this all comes crashing down? He leaned forward, his voice almost pleading. Then at least I'll know I tried to live as myself. That I didn't waste another year hiding. Before I could respond, her footsteps returned. She walked back into the kitchen, still on the phone, smiling, oblivious. The spell broke, but the echo of his words stayed lodged in my chest. Later that night, after she went to bed, he offered to walk me out. The air outside was cool, damp from the rain earlier. We stood near my car, the streetlight casting shadows across his face. You shouldn't come back, I said, though my voice betrayed me. Do you want that? He asked quietly. I hesitated. Every fiber of me screamed to say yes, to cut this off before it destroyed us both. But when I opened my mouth, the word wouldn't come. He stepped closer, his presence overwhelming. Say it if you mean it. Tell me you don't feel this and I'll walk away. My breath caught. I couldn't say it, because it wasn't true. Instead, I whispered, you make me feel like I can't breathe, and like I don't want to stop. Something shifted in his eyes then, relief, longing, something raw. He lifted a hand, brushing it against mine. The contact was fire, pulling me toward him despite every warning in my head. Then, in a rush I wasn't ready for, his lips were on mine. The kiss was fierce, desperate, like years of silence exploding all at once. I melted into him, my hands gripping his shirt, his arms pulling me close as if he was afraid I'd vanish. When we broke apart, we were both breathless, chests heaving. He pressed his forehead to mine. I don't care what it costs. I can't go back to pretending. I closed my eyes, trembling. Then we're already too far in. We stood there in the dark, our secrets sealed with that kiss, knowing that nothing would ever be the same again. And yet, somewhere in the shadows, I thought I saw a curtain shift in a window above us. Someone might have been watching. The next morning, the weight of what happened lingered like a bruise on my skin, tender, impossible to ignore. Every time I replayed that kiss under the streetlight, I felt a rush of fire and guilt in equal measure. I wanted him again, but I also feared what would happen if his wife's suspicions grew, if neighbors whispered, if the world we just cracked open collapsed on top of us. I told myself to stay away, to draw the line. But by mid-afternoon, a text buzzed on my phone. Him, can you come by? I need to talk. I stared at the screen, my pulse racing. Rationality screamed at me to ignore it, to keep my distance. But my thumb betrayed me. Me, on my way. When I arrived, he opened the door quickly, almost as if he'd been waiting with one hand on the knob. His eyes were heavy, dark circles beneath them, but the moment he saw me, something softened. He pulled me inside and shut the door firmly behind us. She suspects something, he said immediately, his voice low. My stomach dropped. What do you mean? She asked why you were here so much. Why I didn't tell her more about you. I brushed it off, but she's not stupid. I swallowed hard. So why call me over? Isn't this the worst time? He shook his head, pacing the small living room. Because I can't stop thinking about you. About last night. About what it felt like to finally be honest, even for a second. His words cut through me. I wanted to tell him to stop, to think of his wife, to think of the life he had built. But instead, I heard myself whisper, I can't stop either. He stopped pacing, looking at me with an intensity that pinned me to the spot. Then maybe we need to stop pretending this is something we can just walk away from. The silence stretched. My chest rose and fell rapidly. What are you saying? He stepped closer, his voice rough. I'm saying I've lived half a life for too long. And now I've found someone who makes me want more. I can't ignore that. Before I could respond, a sound from the hallway made both of us jump, the click of a door opening. His wife's voice floated in, casual, unassuming. I thought I heard someone. Is everything okay? My heart slammed against my ribs. He straightened immediately, his mask snapping back into place. Yeah, everything's fine. Just talking. She appeared in the doorway, her eyes flicking between us. I forced a smile, though my palms were slick with sweat. Didn't expect to see you again so soon, she said to me, her tone light but edged with something sharper. Yeah, just checking in, I stammered. She studied us a moment longer, then smiled faintly. Well, I'm making tea. Want some? I shook my head quickly. Thanks, but I should get going. Her eyes lingered on me, unreadable, before she turned away. As soon as she was gone, he exhaled, running a hand through his hair. You see? This is what I mean. It's only a matter of time. My chest tightened. And then what? What happens when she finds out? When everyone finds out? He stepped closer again, his voice low and urgent. Then we face it. Together. Unless you don't want that. I hesitated. My heart wanted to say yes, to fall into him completely. But my head screamed about the danger, the consequences. You're asking me to be part of tearing your life apart, I whispered. He shook his head fiercely. No. I'm asking you to help me build a real one. The rawness in his voice broke me. I couldn't look away, couldn't step back. And when he reached out, brushing his fingers against mine, I didn't resist. But the moment was shattered by the sound of a crash in the kitchen, glass breaking. His wife cursed softly, then called out, I'm fine. We both froze, the reality of her presence pressing down on us. He dropped my hand reluctantly, eyes burning with frustration. You should go, he muttered. I nodded, my chest aching. But as I turned to leave, he caught my arm, pulling me back just enough to whisper, Don't give up on me. Please. The plea lingered in my ears as I stepped out into the cool evening air. I walked away with my heart in pieces, knowing we were teetering on the edge of disaster. And yet, deep down, I knew I couldn't walk away, not now, not after everything. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every word, every glance, every brush of his hand. I thought about his wife, about the life he risked, about the danger of being discovered. But above all, I thought about the way he looked at me, as if I was the first real thing he'd allowed himself to feel in years. Sleep never came. And when my phone buzzed again around midnight, a single message lit up the screen. Him, meet me tomorrow. Somewhere no one knows us. My heart raced as I typed back. Me, where? His reply came almost instantly. Him, the motel off Route 7. Noon. I stared at the screen, my pulse hammering. Saying yes meant crossing a line we could never uncross. But deep inside, I already knew my answer. The motel was the kind of place people drove past without noticing. Cheap siding, faded neon sign, a parking lot cracked with weeds. By the time I pulled in, my hands were slick on the steering wheel, my chest heavy with the weight of what I was about to do. He was already there, leaning against his truck, head bowed, like a man waiting for a verdict. When he saw me, something in his posture shifted, relief mixed with fear. You came, he said quietly. I almost didn't I admitted, stepping closer. But I couldn't stay away. Inside, the room was plain, beige walls, a bedspread patterned with tired blues. But the moment the door shut behind us, the silence grew thick, louder than any traffic outside. He paced once, then turned to me, eyes raw. "I don't want to lie anymore," he said. "Not to her, not to myself. I've been hiding for so long, I forgot what it felt like to breathe." His honesty hit me like a blow. "Then why me? Why now?" He stepped closer, his voice trembling but sure. "Because you make me feel alive. Because every time you're near, I see the life I should have been living. And I can't keep pretending that doesn't matter." I wanted to resist, to remind him of the life he was risking. But when his hand brushed mine, all the arguments dissolved. I leaned into him, and in that moment, the rest of the world fell away. We kissed again, this time not desperate, but deliberate. A choice. His arms wrapped around me, steady and strong, and for the first time, I let myself believe we could belong to each other, even if only here, even if only now. When we finally pulled apart, I whispered, "What happens after this?" He exhaled, his forehead resting against mine. "I don't know. But I know I can't go back to who I was before. Even if it means starting over, even if it means breaking everything I've built. I'd rather break it than keep living a lie." Tears stung my eyes. "And her?" His face fell, grief flickering there. "She deserves the truth. And it will hurt. But she deserves more than a husband who's only half alive." The weight of his words pressed down, heavy but honest. I realized then that this wasn't just about us. It was about him choosing himself, maybe for the first time. We stayed in that room for hours, not rushing, not hiding. We talked about the lives we'd lived, the fears we carried, the pieces of ourselves we'd buried. Every confession pulled us closer, stripped away another wall. As the sun dipped low outside, painting the room in shades of orange and gold, he took my hand and said, "This is just the beginning. If you're willing to take that risk with me." I stared at him, my chest tight, my heart racing. The road ahead was uncertain, full of storms we couldn't predict. But looking at him, I knew one thing. I couldn't turn away. Not anymore. "I'm with you," I whispered. His shoulders sagged with relief, and for the first time, a genuine smile spread across his face. The world outside that motel room didn't change. His marriage still existed, the whispers of neighbors still lingered, and Carter's glare still haunted the hallways. But inside, in that quiet, ordinary space, something extraordinary began. A choice. The truth. A love that refused to stay hidden. As I drove home later that night, the highway lights streaking past, I replayed his words in my head. "I don't want to lie anymore." And I knew deep down that neither did I. If this story touched your heart, take a moment to reflect. How many times have you hidden your truth to protect someone else's expectations? How much of yourself have you silenced out of fear? Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is choose honesty, even when it costs us everything. If this story moved you, subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share it with someone who needs to hear that it's never too late to start living your truth. Because real love doesn't hide.